start off the evening with a celebration of excellence, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Rodriguez.
So much more has happened, including discussions to look at ways students in this program can interact and make a difference with some of our younger students at the elementary level and across the district. Just so you're aware, Unified Theater's mission is to foster meaningful inclusion and develop student leaders through the arts. In Unified Theater, regular education and students with special needs come together to put on a production entirely organized, written, and directed by the students themselves. Over the last few years, we have watched students change their choice in careers after working with their peers in this venue. It is a place where everyone is given a voice and an opportunity to shine. And I know that some of the students weren't able to be with us this evening, but we do have Janice Gabriel, one of the teachers, and some of her students to say a few words. So again, congratulations to what I think is a wonderful program, and we're just so proud of them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rodriguez and board. I don't know if you want me to stand here. My name is Janice Gabriel. I am the theater teacher at the high school. And upon interviewing for my job, I had expressed to Dr. Rodriguez and Michelle Hisovich that it was a goal of mine to start a theater program that was inclusive of special needs students and typical students. And immediately we went right to work. And we were very, very lucky to receive a grant from the state of Connecticut for $36,000 that was able to get us off the ground. And we started out with Unified Theater, which is a company, well, not a company, it's a program in the state of Connecticut, but it's national, that works to this exact program. And it started out as an after-school program, and through the help of that grant, we were able to make it a curricular class. So over the last 5 years, we've grown into more than I have ever hoped that it could possibly be. And with the help of our administration, we were able to make this curricular class, and it's so popular that we had to make it a semester class instead of a full year class, because so many students wanted to take it and they couldn't fit it for a full year. So in these 5 years, we have had 92 unique individuals grace our stage. And so many of our students take it year after year after year because they love it so much. Caitlin has taken it, her third year taking the class. Miles is in his second year taking the class. They're two of our student leaders. So many kids take it over and over and over again because they gain so much from this class. It is the happiest part of my day. And I know that Alicia Catherine, who couldn't be here, stuck in traffic and trying to get here desperately, feels the same way. We could be having the worst possible day and we get to Unified Theater and you can't not smile. Our students have taken on leadership roles and taken problem solving to completely new levels. And they have found ways to literally give some of our students a voice through the use of technology. We use iPads to give voices to all of our students, some of our nonverbal students, and the smiles on their faces when they hear their lines come on. We often have to stop the show because they're laughing so hard, we're laughing, and then the whole entire audience is laughing. It's a national organization that gives out what they call these Rockstar Awards, and over the last 2 years, we have been graced with 3 Rockstar winners and 2 nominations. And that's nationally. So Unified Theater has praised us over and over how much we have taken their model and really taken it to heart in what we've done. Overall, what we accomplish day in and day out is quite remarkable, and you can't help but smile. We call our shows Perfectly Imperfect. It is never perfect, and that is absolutely okay. But what we gain is so much more than what we give. So I don't know if Caitlin and Miles, if you wanted to say something real quick about what you've gained over the last few years.
Okay, so when
When I first moved to the school, which was during my sophomore year, I didn't really know anyone, but I gained like a lot of friends and you make really good connections. I know like 5 of my best friends came from that class and we hang out all the time now. And it's also like you think that you're like teaching these students so much when you walk in, but they teach you so much more than you could like ever imagine. So it's really cool.
Much to say, but I always loved the Unified program. I started with Unified Sports as a freshman, and I thought this was just going to be like another Unified class, and I was really happy to join it. But I really gained so much more out of this class. Here's Timmy. Me and Tim were partners during the show last year. But yeah, working with Tim, working with Jordan, it's been a really great experience for me, and I got a lot more than what I expected.
So Tim is one of our students in Unified Theater, and he laughs constantly and is up on that stage, and we have found out that he is the biggest ham and loves when people clap for him and loves when people laugh for him. And for some reason, Tim gets all the laughs. They give him the best lines. So although our students last year said that their goal was to get Tim to fly before they were leaving, they did not make that happen. We are flying this year at the high school, but Tim is not flying. But really, what these students do is quite remarkable, day in and day out, and we really learn so much more from them than I could ever hope to teach them. And if you haven't come out to see one of our Unified Theater shows, right, Tim? You need to come out and see it. Our shows this year are January. I don't know. It's the first weekend we're back in January with a snow date, but we're not going to be using that. I'm looking over there. So we hope that you'll come out and join us for Unified Theater and come see all of our fantastic students on stage. It's really the best show you'll ever see, and I promise that. So.
So I know I speak for the board when I say that is one of our most favorite shows to attend every year. And everybody talks about it when we come back from the show. So thank you so much for all you do with the program. It's been great to watch it grow. And with that, I don't know if anybody else wants to, have I said enough? Okay, so I'll just invite everybody up and we'll take a few minutes break just to have some refreshments and celebrate. And
We'll
then
leave the
call it.
slideshow. We've got some slides of our class and of our shows, so we'll just leave that playing while you all enjoy some refreshments too. Thank you. Thank you.
After all that celebrating. All right, so we'll move on to item 4. I will entertain a motion that the Board of Education support the superintendent's recommendation regarding the discipline pertaining to student 2018-2019-01. Mr. Tucson makes a motion, Mr. Burrow seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda, which includes the donation to the Newtown High School, the resignation of Aaron Puzarn, and the correspondence report. Mr. Puzarn makes a motion, Ms. Herron Stites seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. And that brings us to public participation. So during public participation, the board welcomes commentary from the public. We request that speakers be respectful, refrain from referencing specific persons, avoid repetition of comments made by other speakers, and limit comments to less than 3 minutes. The Board of Education does not discuss personnel items in public, including complaints against any employee of the Board of Education, regardless of whether or not the employee is referenced by name or any other identifiable attribute. If you desire more information or answers to specific questions, please complete the citizen's request for information form located on the table. The first public participation will be confined to agenda items only, and the second public participation will be for agenda items as well as issues the public wishes the board to consider in the future. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? These folks here, and nobody. I'm waiting for the second. All right, so I will close out public participation. We'll move on to our reports. So starting with the chair report, I've had feedback on whether we can do a Board of Education workshop. It turns out that none of the dates that I put out there were ones that would work for all of our board members. So somebody has proposed that perhaps, Mr. Floros proposed that perhaps we could do this at the beginning of one of our board meetings on a Tuesday evening, start early at 6 p.m., try to have a short agenda, and then start our meeting at 8 p.m. so we get 2 hours of board workshop in. So what I'll do is I'll send out a whole new set of dates for you. They will correspond with our Tuesday meeting nights, and then you can let me know if any of those you can make at 6 p.m. There is a school start time conference on October 16th, and I believe Mr. Burrows is going. I have agreed to go to the school start time conference, and will be moderating or presenting or something to that effect. The CADE CAPS convention is also coming up. I think Dr. Rodriguez put a flyer in your packet for November 16th and 17th. It's always an excellent conference to attend to learn about board roles, all kinds of issues affecting boards of education and superintendents around the state. And then finally, I haven't heard from anybody about wanting to join the next negotiating team, but that is still open if anybody has a desire to be on a negotiating team coming up starting January-ish. That brings us to the superintendent. Oh, unless anybody has any questions, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Koo. Good evening, everyone, and I hope everyone had a wonderful Labor Day weekend. I just have to say this year started off on a very positive note. We had an outstanding convocation and really a positive, I think, energy in every building I visited throughout the district. I did want to start with staffing. As you know, we, and I mentioned this before, we had to add another kindergarten section at Middlegate as we had new registrations. We had 6 new registrations in 2 days over the summer. So we are still down 3 positions. We have a Middlegate special education teacher, speech and language at the middle school, and as you know, we will be looking for a new chairperson in special education at the high school. But we are, again, in the interview stages, so we are pretty confident that we will fill those. Aside from the self-study, as you know, that I'm going to speak to this evening, we are looking to expand some of our services, our reading intervention services in the district, so that our highly qualified staff can work with students at the elementary levels in areas that they may not have before. This may require an additional staff position if we do end up filling that position with an internal candidate. I will send you and speak to further details on this once we discuss those specific needs and the logistics of that position across the district. Dr. Koo and I will be meeting with the new superintendent of Region 12, Megan Bennett, on September the 6th to discuss the new agri-science program. It had been pushed back. It was supposed to start and open this year. It is starting next year. As you know, we have previously entered into an agreement with Region 12 to send students to that program once it opened. And again, we will share further details with you once we meet with the superintendent there. A group of us are also planning to visit a special education behavioral program in Rhode Island on November 17th. Rebecca Stites-Harriman will be with us, as will other staff members in the district. This will help us as we look to develop an in-house program in the next year or so, which we hope will take place in the former nursery space at the high school, and we think that's a really good space for it. We've looked at it. I've met with the principal of the high school, and we think we can actually start this next year at some point. This is only one program that we're looking at, but it should give us ideas as we move forward to support our own students. And again, any other board members who are interested in taking that trip with us, you can just send me an email. In regards to the CIP, no new updates other than the HVAC is being installed at Middlegate, and that will be installed by September the 19th, which will bring air conditioning, thankfully, to the cafeteria there. And I know there have been typical concerns around the temperatures at this time of year, in light of just last week and today, in some of our buildings that do lack air conditioning. Moving forward, we will continue to use the CIP process to move similar projects like Middlegate forward. Until then, our staff and leaders continue to utilize those cool spaces, those air-conditioned spaces as necessary to ensure students and staff are comfortable, and to use, of course, as I did today, early release schedules whenever appropriate. I know Thursday is not looking any better, but again, you will get a message if we decide to go with an early dismissal. That's all I have this evening, so thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez, are there any questions? Mr. Clark?
I just have one quick question about you had mentioned the CIP process with regard to the different schools, the 3 schools that don't have complete air conditioning throughout them. With the CIP process, there's a threshold of 250,000 or more that needs to before it even is considered for the CIP process. So is there ever any projects that maybe we could ask or you could come back with, maybe if it's, I've been, told that like it's an electrical, for example, like putting in window units at the middle school, it's an electrical issue and not a power issue. So, is there ever a reason that you could be coming back and saying, hey, it's not meeting that threshold, so instead of waiting for the CIP that, somehow we could be doing these smaller projects, to be doing a wing at a time or something, or at least not, just holding off on doing these things and waiting to meeting that threshold. I guess is really my ultimate question.
That's an excellent question. We are actually looking at, as a matter of fact, Gino and I just met this morning, and looking at ductless, they're called ductless splits for Holly in the multi-purpose room. This would not necessarily be part of the CIP because it doesn't meet that threshold. I really wanted to have the cost for you this evening just so you got sort of a ballpark about what it costs. But what it does is just cool the existing air, and it does cool down an entire room and other rooms. So we will be getting some costs for you and presenting that as a possibility moving forward.
Any other questions? So we'll move on to committee reports.
The curriculum and instruction met this morning, and we spoke about literacy in core instruction and interventions to better understand our current practice and reflect on ways we can continuously improve systemically. And that will be an ongoing conversation that we will be having. The updates that Jean presented to us were as follows: the potential for an American Sign Language elective, to be possibly instituted at the Reed School and then moving on to the middle and high school. Upcoming plans for district PD in Words Their Way, concept-based curriculum, and the ongoing science. We also addressed the calendar for our next meeting, which will be set for the 25th of September, and the agenda will be published as soon as we do it. Thank you.
Any questions? Any other policy?
The policy committee met last week, and we continue to go through the 5,000 series, which addresses student issues. So we worked with Ann Dalton, who is with our nurses, around some policies about administering medication and the school's medical advisor. We also talked with our athletic director around our hazing policy and our high school principal around the school vehicle parking policy. So we are swiftly moving through the 5,000 series, and we will be bringing forward some policies that are out of order and then a few of the 5,000 series at our next meeting for your first read.
Thank you. Any questions? So that brings us to our Newtown High School Student Representative Report. So we have our high school representatives with us this evening. Yeah, you got to seek out a microphone. So Claire Dubois and Robert Mora are with us, and I know school's only been in session for a little bit, but you have a report for us? Great.
Alright, so hello everyone. As summer watchmen and last week, the returning students looked to begin the year fresh, coming back to school with many familiar stats, but quite a few new ones. With Dr. Longabugo as our new principal and Mr. Roach returning to assistant principal, the school is lucky enough to welcome Mr. Shiano as our assistant principal. And aside from the administrative team, 2 new teachers joined the staff in the history department, and we look forward to their journey through the school year. As for the new young faces that we see throughout the high school, the freshmen have been introduced to what life is like in Newtown. Before this school year started, they toured around the high school and were shown their classes and lockers by the upperclassmen, student leaders, and link group. They play a lot of games and icebreakers to get them more comfortable with their classmates and their peers. And then this past Thursday, the crew held an ice cream social to start the young fund up for the class of 2022.
On a very balmy, beautiful Labor Day yesterday, the whole community was lined up and down Main Street and King Street to watch the parade. It'll be a party day. Many of our own teams at the high school were out selling water, clothes, and coupons to fundraise for their respective clubs and teams. And the marching band and color guard performed through the parade. The band and guard is also competing at Bethel next Saturday. In other news, trials for the fall production in the crew school are being casting crew as the students and staff of theater do their own take on the Arthur Miller play. On the field, court, and in the pool, many student athletes have been working hard in tryouts, training, and practice. The sports team season officially begins this Thursday as both the boys and girls soccer teams will be playing against New Milford. Field hockey will start off the season playing Fairfield Ward, and girls volleyball will play against Darien Mountain. On Friday, our football team plays at Bloomingdale Stadium against New Fairfield, and Sylvia Dad will be competing too. On Tuesday, girls and boys cross country begin their season. And lastly, the student body is now able to pursue their many interests as clubs begin their sign-ups.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? No. All right, thank you so much. Welcome to sitting at the board. So you're welcome to stay for the rest of the evening, or you can sneak out, do whatever homework you might have at this time of year. Either way, you're welcome to stay. All right, so we'll move on to old business and action on the superintendent's goals. So start that off by entertaining a motion that the Board of Education approve the superintendent's goals for 2018-19.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Kusan makes a motion, Ms. Harriman cites second. Is there any discussion? Mr.
Rodriguez, did you, since I asked you last time about a mentor, do you have a mentor?
I'm supposed to be getting one at the end of the week. That's what I've heard.
Any other questions? I think it's a part of, right, written in, yeah, so, okay. Already working on hold on. Yes, Mr. Clark.
I don't know if it's a question or like with the second one of, you know, communicating our the educational needs, and basically it seems like it's covering like our you know, budget and the budget season and stuff. I was wondering if maybe this is, you know, more broad, but in meaning to in the weeds or whatever, but if we could add with technology these days, making one available when either we're doing it being video online or something like that, or a different way that, you know, because everybody can't always make it to, whether she's at the, if Dr. Rodriguez maybe at the senior center going over it or getting out awareness about whatever the topic might be throughout the year, but somehow maybe making a video conference and just making, you know, hopefully maybe being a little bit more broad for people to be aware of it. You know, not just it saying, hey, here's the link to it, but, you know, live for it, you know.
I can add that into the examples because I
I
think
know it says video before, I just don't know if it says, like, if that's specific, that's why I was asking if there's maybe more detail about it, or maybe that covers that, so.
that was the intention, but I can explore making, maybe clarifying that better in those examples, if you want. For digital presence, I know what you're talking about.
So we're approving these now, so is it, can you propose maybe specific language to add and,
I think she understands what, you know, so I can, you know, it's sort of more, I'll say video covers it right now, so, you know, I don't need to be.
okay. Okay. So we'll leave it as is, but know that that's included? Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Mr.
I just have a general question on measurement. How do we measure these? Is there a specific tool that we use to measure these, or since I haven't been through this process with an existing superintendent, I was just curious at the end, is there a, how do we measure these so that, because that's really what we're supposed to do, you set a goal and then you measure the goal, correct? So,
So we have a policy on the evaluation process, so these don't specifically fit into that policy.
so are they two separate things?
They are two separate things. This does help in terms of following through that policy. Ms. Ludwig has some.
I was just going to say, in the past, the superintendent has given an update as to where they are with regard to their goals prior to the evaluation process happening, and so therefore, with that in mind, the evaluation process happens.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, sensing no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion passes unanimously. And that brings us to new business. The presentation regarding the Newtown High School trip to Panama. Dr. Rodriguez, do you have anything, any introductory material?
So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Longobucco, but I just want to say that some of the experiences that obviously we've touched upon India, we had a presentation on India, and all of the various trips that take place at the high school, and now Panama. Just the extraordinary experiences that students are getting. And I want to thank all of those teachers who you see in front of you and even behind the scenes who give up their time for a very good reason, and that is to take kids to places they haven't been and to experience things culturally that really will make a difference in their lives for a very long time. So I want to thank you all for that.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you. I am here with three of our science teachers, Tim DeGiulio, Susan McConnell, and Sean Mullen.
and we are here to present a presentation on the possibility of a scouting trip to Panama to look for safety as well as a potential trip to learn about culture, academics, and science in a place where the NICE organization hasn't sent students in the past. We're fortunate enough that Sean, at his previous school, has had the experience of planning trips to that area of the world. And so he's going to present to us a little bit tonight. And Susan, Tim, and I were fortunate enough to be on the scouting trip to India. So last year we went on the scouting trip to India and then were able to execute a trip with the students in April. So tonight, without further ado, we're going to present to you a little bit about Panama. Sean?
Hello, thank you so much, Kim. And thank you, Dr. Rodriguez and the board and parents and students for being here. I'm very excited to present to you an idea of traveling to the Coca-Cola Nature Preserve to study all sorts of different scientific endeavors, really. The purpose of this presentation is to request money for a scouting mission for myself and 2 other staff members to go down to Coca-Cola Natural Reserve and just scout out the area, make sure it's safe, and look at the ins and outs of the area that we're going to be traveling to. Kim did a great job of introducing me. I'm Sean Mullen. I teach greenery, greenhouse management, biology at Newtown High School. And like Dr. Lugo said before, I taught at the Foreman School in Litchfield, where I worked as a staff member on the Foreman School Rainforest Project. And that's a project that's been running for 29 years now in Costa Rica. I took part of that trip for 7 years, and it was an unrivaled experience for me, let alone all the students that were able to go on that trip each and every year. I'm also an Eagle Scout, and I'm certified in wilderness first responder through the Solo Wilderness Medicine in New Hampshire. Okay, so why send teachers to Panama? Really, we're hoping to scout out the materials and procedures that are being used in the reserve to properly prepare our students for whatever learning experiences they might come into contact with in Panama. We'll be in collaboration with the Coca-Cola Natural Reserve and taking trips in and out of their community and experiencing the culture of Panama, as well as researching, basically. Safety is our number one. So with safety, with the safety protocols that are already in place, we have 410 hectares, which is about 1,100 acres of primary rainforest that is reserved and protected by the Panama government. So not only is it a pristine environment to bring students and have them experience nature in that climate, but also a safe area to be doing the research. Coca-Cola Research Facility has staff members that are certified similarly to my wilderness first responder, but Cineproc is a corporation in Panama and South America, which is similar to the American Red Cross. And they also notify the reserve if there's any sort of environmental concerns or weather considerations that are necessary if that comes up. Program director Michael Roy holds a degree in holds a doctorate in hygiene and tropical medicine, and it's my understanding that the NICE program is affiliated with STEC, which is a good collaboration with the U.S. Embassy. We have an InReach, and those of you not familiar with InReach is a handheld radio that connects with the satellite. So regardless of the Wi-Fi that's at the research station and cell service in and out of the city, there's also a way of two-way communication anywhere on the globe with an InReach. And that's just an extra safety protocol. So our thought is that the trip would align with both the mission of the NICE and also with the district. You know, traveling, not only are we going to be doing scientific research at the reserve, but we're also going to be taking trips to the Panama Canal and in and out of the community, possibly working with elementary schools, maybe working with gardens, or helping them build benches or whatever. So part of Coca-Cola's mission is to affiliate the researchers with the community so that they can get a wide perspective of the span of the work that they're doing and how it affects not only the reserve and the animals in the reserve, but also the community at large. And as far as the district mission, similarly, we intend to hold them to the students to high expectations upon their return. So, Tim, if you switch slides, I think the next slide is some learning opportunities. But the science that the students can do in the rainforest can span from anywhere from studying geologic structures to water chemistry, taking biological surveys, soil chemistry, botany, entomology, ornithology, the possibilities are endless. Some cultural opportunities is the Embera tribe is the native tribe of the rainforest in that area, and there's still tribes throughout that are living, you know, off the land and also in the city. And, you know, trips to the Panama Canal, as I mentioned before. All of our research will align with NGSS standards. The research facility is very clean. There's Wi-Fi right at the station, so, you know, when I talked to Michael Roy a few times and we Skyped, so it's just really interesting to be able to have video chat with somebody in the center of a nature preserve in Panama. He flipped the computer around and showed me around, so it was, you know, really good connection. And there's, you know, 410 hectares of forest to be explored and researched. The sleeping quarters, there's a thatched roof. The tents are provided. Solid floor. Great bathrooms with hot showers and running water and flushing toilets, even LED lights. Okay, the student follow through, and this is where you know, we're coming back to the district mission of holding students to high expectations. Upon their return, there's a lot of opportunities for them to take this experience a step further or many steps further. With the new capstone project, they can take that and use that as an avenue for their research, or the applied science research class, AP environmental, greenery. Okay, so we're thinking of going down for about 7 days. That, you know, this is a rough itinerary, but, you know, traveling down to meeting with the Embera tribe, traveling to the Panama Canal, around the city, spending some time in Coca-Cola, then back to Panama City and get home. The cost for 3 adults would be $8,400, give or take. That includes food, lodging, transportation to and from the airport, to and from the cities, and everything else that would be necessary. So to sum up, this opportunity for our students is really unrivaled. I've seen dozens of students go in and out of the Foreman School Rainforest Project, and it was life-changing for them. They decided on different career paths. They changed the schools they were applying to, and it just changed their entire life to focus on either an area of research or maybe medicine or, you know, what have you. So, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have are you willing to take questions from the board?
Sure.
Do you have any questions?
What would be the timing of your trip, and then what would be the timing of the trip for the students?
That's a good question. So the Panama and a lot of the rainforests, they deal with the wet season and the dry season. So ideally, it would be great if we could go down sooner than later, but the passage to the reserve is pretty much impassable during the wet season, which ends in January, February time. So really, it would be best if we went somewhere around the January, February time for the scouting mission, and then the following year, I think, for the students at that point.
We would like to plan it to travel during midterm, so we're not losing teaching time. That's my concern. And so we're looking at traveling during those dates there, so it's not contact time with us being lost.
Right, I mean, I guess that was my question too, that obviously adds to the cost if we're having to backfill, if you're
Right,
traveling
it's-
during teaching time.
Right, during midterms, it's not an issue. Somebody can just
Right,
walk in
right.
and practice
Okay.
their exam.
Great, thank you for clarifying.
What type of report will you be giving us? Will you be giving us a written report, or will you be, I guess, what can we expect to see from you after this trip?
Well, last time we did a presentation to the board. We came back to the board for you to approve us to travel with students. And we went through, what we had seen and the information we gathered, that we put our names to their safety and to, again, the academic and cultural environment that they were going to be immersed in. This is a sightseeing trip. This is an academic trip that's, combining with culture. So last time we came back and did a presentation to the board. But certainly if you want a written report, you could write something.
How many students are you anticipating bringing on this trip? Have you thought about that yet?
Yeah, they can accommodate around 11 to 14 people generally, so maybe 8 or 10 students and 2 staff members.
The native language is Spanish. So here's my question. Were there to be students that signed up that are in advanced Spanish classes? This is a suggestion. That they be immersed in that language as much as they possibly could to include that.
Absolutely, yeah.
We're going to have to see when we travel down. I mean,
Yes.
that's part of the reason for us going down.
Yes.
Okay, can we get by with knowing no Spanish? Can we immerse them in Spanish at the research station? Certainly outside of the research station we can, but in the research station, what is the primary language? Is it communicated clearly? Will our students have difficulty? And that's one of the reasons why we want to travel first. We don't want to put our students in a situation where they can't cope, can't handle, can't learn from their experience.
Exactly.
So I can't answer that until I go down and we work with the people and see.
Right, because it might turn out to be a differentiated kind of experience where some are immersed in it and others.
Right, some might choose to go with certain research groups because they're totally Spanish speaking, or others might stick to purely English speaking research groups.
So you're asking for $8,400 for 3 adults. And is there money run currently in the budget that's earmarked for this?
This is not a specifically budgeted item within the budget at this time.
So what line item would it come out of?
Well, we may have to look around. The first place I'd look is the high school travel and conference to see if some of that money could be freed up. And then I think we could also look at some of the donation accounts and see if there's anything that would correlate with this type of an activity.
And then eventually you're looking for students to travel, and how would you expect that to be funded?
Students.
Students, yeah, as we do field trips.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering how know, and maybe Ron, I mean, this is like, I'm gonna ask you a question that you probably don't know off the top of your head, but maybe you remember since you went, I mean, what is the typical cost of a scouting trip? How much did the India scouting trip cost? Is this,
We are very frugal. We came way under what we were budgeted for. Yeah, we were offered 12,000 and we came not even close.
750.
Yeah.
so this is,
And 4 of us went.
okay, so this is sort of in line with what that cost is?
Yes.
Okay,
But again, we do our very best to be as frugal as possible. We're no frills.
I appreciate that.
What are some of the specific academic takeaways that you expect from, or you're hoping to find when you go down there scouting that the students will be able to take away? I mean, obviously Panama Canal has historical and cultural significance, but I'm thinking more around the actual reserve and what they might pursue or see or explore.
Yeah, definitely. So I personally, I can see the students working on projects that, like, you know, stream ecology, for instance. If there was a team working on stream ecology, they could be doing, you know, water testing, different chemical testing to support a lot of the labs that are being done in the chemistry classes. Looking at macroinvertebrates, that's like a biology thing.
What's important is that we go down and see. This should be a differentiated trip based on students' abilities. You know, we don't want to say they're going to do this, they're going to do this, because we should have a wide range of student abilities that go down. And so it's important for us to see what is there and what our students are capable of, so that the trip is custom tailored to them. And when they come back, there's so many opportunities for them to share, like you said, the capstone project, TIMS, Applied Science Research. I mean, I was even thinking the Catherine Hubbard Foundation, having kids come back and do little weekend things. There are so many applications of them visiting there, both for cultural and science, to bring back to the community, to go into the elementary schools, the middle schools, and share what they've learned. But until we actually get there and see what's to offer, because again, we want to choose something that has a wide range so that all our students can be accommodated to the best of their ability level so they get the most. It's no good to go down and go through the process and not understand something. We want them to totally internalize and have takeaways so that when they come back, they can actually apply it and share what they've learned with others.
So your contact with Catherine Hubbard, and to what extent are you going to involve in that?
We don't know yet until we go and see what they have.
I think the possibilities.
The possibilities are endless of what we can do. That's what we have all these ideas in our head, what we want to take away, but then what's the reality when we get down there?
Yes. Have you spoken to them?
No, she had come to the high school and asked how we could collaborate along the way, and so this is one way we thought that we could potentially could.
And they were very open to anything you do in the schools. I maintain an ongoing relationship with them, and I'm sure that you'd be very excited for anything that brings student volunteers to the sanctuary.
Yes, it's a perfect collaborative model. Perfect. So I personally would love it if you would contact them, let them know what you're thinking of doing, and see what they say.
You have to send us first, John.
Say it again?
I said you have to send us first.
Actually, I think what I'm saying is to begin to contact them so that you can come back to us and say,
Yes.
you know where.
Yes, I know where you're going.
Do you have a rough idea of what it's going to cost a student to partake in this?
Let's see. Yeah, so typically the other trips were about $2,800. What was the number? What India was exactly?
India was 28, I think Spain was like 26. It's in alignment with the normal trips we go out.
That's pretty much the same, yeah, I think it's around 1,800 for the Coca-Cola Reserve and their affiliated costs. I think around 800 for flight and then a couple hundred for travel back and forth. So that brings us to like 26, 27.
Any other questions? to hearing your report when you come back.
Thank you.
Well, we have to.
Do we have a motion? I don't think we have a motion to do anything with this.
Could we, I mean, do you need to know tonight for this? 'Cause I would personally feel more comfortable if Ron could come back to us where exactly the funds are going to be coming from. So if you need, if we could, I mean, since you're not going until January, is it all right to let you know in 2 weeks?
Yes, 2 weeks is good. Just remember, the sooner we know, the cheaper the flights are. That's all. I told her I'm pretty frugal in planning into here.
And we need to get down a little bit.
Right.
This going down as well.
Well, maybe they can do it even if it's financial.
Well, we can be creative. We have Kristen
Cover
Larson
the
here.
Panama
and
Papers
say-
as part of the program.
We could.
All right, so we'll make sure that that's on the next agenda to get that done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so that moves us to our self-study proposal on special education. Dr. Rodriguez, would you like to-
Thank you, Dr. Koo. Okay, so I wanted to really take a moment first to recognize the voices that have clearly emerged recently involving special education. And we've heard from parents both here at board meetings and through email as well. And our goal specifically is to identify areas that we can improve in the best interest of students and families. And I think that is integral to everything we do and why we're here this evening. But before I discuss the potential plan, I did want to make a few comments. I want to make a distinction between individual concerns related to specific students. These are normally handled through staff, administrators, and parents at PPTs, those team members who truly understand the nature of the students they work with every day and the supports they need to be successful. However, we do want to focus on the areas that can be reviewed and addressed globally, systemically. And once those more global issues do emerge and are identified and quantified and agreed upon as areas for improvement. In fact, as I mentioned in a recent letter to staff, if at the end of any self-reflective process, any self-study, we have a better insight to our needs, for example, new resources or changes in practices that can lend further support to our work, then we should all embrace this. That makes sense. To educators, this is nothing new, I just have to say. We seek continuous improvement every day. That's what we do. I also want to emphasize something I said publicly in the Newtown BOE, that we do have great confidence, and I know we have staff sitting here this evening, in our staff and our leaders. Their support of students is visible, and many positive experiences occur. And these in no way are diminished when we look at reviewing what we do, being self-reflective and taking a moment to look at what we do and how we can improve. That's okay, and we should be doing that every day. Following the last board meeting, we heard from parents who also had very positive experiences, and I know this will come through as we are self-reflective. That's part of the process. Since the last board meeting, I did want to point out, and I think I can reach it from here. Yes, I can. We have taken some immediate steps, and I wanted to share those, most particularly around a clear response related to, I call them 3 buckets: programs, practices, and perceptions, and those are equally important. Following the initial board meeting of August 14th, a letter was sent out directly to families so that parents knew they were heard and that we were planning a reasonable and timely approach to reflect on and find resolutions to some of the concerns that were raised. I had a discussion with the Director of Pupil Services, and we agreed that we would look at a self-study, and that would be an appropriate approach, especially as it involved impartial outside consultants who could facilitate the gathering of feedback from stakeholders. Now, I know other districts have grappled with similar issues, and that might have even been alluded to in previous meetings, but we're not other districts. We're Newtown, and we need to remain in that space where we collaborate. And things aren't always perfect, things go wrong. It happens every day. But we need to move on, and we need to say, these are the areas we need to address, and that's how I think the outcomes are so much better for our students. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the multiple ways we already do review feedback from stakeholders. One is the State of Connecticut survey. I did really try to get a screenshot of it. It didn't happen, but I will share that with you. Which has been conducted on a rotating basis every 2 years, specifically around special education, and does provide us with some useful information. The newest information, unfortunately, isn't expected to be shared with us until this coming January of 2019. However, it directly relates to special education programs and practices, and even parent and stakeholder perception. So I think it'll be very interesting to look at within the context of any self-reflection or any self-study. We also use the Panorama survey. The most recent results will be shared at an upcoming board meeting. This takes in feedback anonymously from all stakeholders, including staff. This year we even piloted, as I mentioned in a previous board meeting, a section around social and emotional perceptions by our students. What we can learn from this data is not only useful, that particular survey is not only useful at the district level, but at the individual school level as well. And I know our leaders really are very mindful of that information as they plan each year. That being said, our approach to this self-study that I'm proposing is meant to augment and enhance the information we already have, as I mentioned, and review themes that naturally evolve in order to take a systems or a systemic approach to making improvements. Again, this will also highlight the areas that are clearly strong, both practices and services we provide to more than 600 special education students on a daily basis here in Newtown. Just some questions that are framed here. How do we define both our strengths and our issues? What approach should we take in identifying those concerns? How do we engage all stakeholder voices, and what actions will we take? I think those are extremely important questions as we move forward. You have a proposal I sent you, members of the board, for a self-study. I do have copies, but it would be easier for you in a hard copy this evening. It will be conducted by 2 impartial retired members from the state of Connecticut, both of whom have extensive experience in special education and working with families and districts through mediation, one who is an attorney. Their initial proposal was sent and outlined the steps they would take, including holding various forums of which no district personnel would be present, 2 different forums for parents, and other meetings with groups of staff and leaders in the district as a way, as I mentioned earlier, to uncover naturally experiences and themes and develop action steps. That's good science. When we talk about research, when we talk about being logical and really understanding, kind of boiling down what are the issues, that's a way to do it. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. They will review all of the information, analyze the data that emerges, and report out to the district. That would be their goal. The hours and costs you will find on the last page of the proposal. It is $10,500. However, I do believe that this is something that is extremely worthwhile and makes a lot of sense given not only the nature of the concerns that have come up, but will also align with some of our goals, natural goals for continuous improvement in the district. Again, I know I wanted all the parents here this evening, as well as the staff, to know that we really do take these concerns seriously. But I think one of the things that makes Newtown so special is that we do work together, we do work collaboratively, and I hope that we can continue to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. So, does anybody have any questions or comments about the proposal? Ms. Harms?
First, I just want to thank you for your immediate attention to the matter. I'm sure, I'm just going to speak for myself, not other board members, but I was deeply troubled by some of the information that was brought forward by parents at the previous meeting. And I'm glad that, you took that to heart and took immediate action and even brought the staff in to have discussions. I think that's a really good standard, and I do appreciate that. I also am appreciative that the proposal includes interviews not just with parents but with non-supervisory staff, because I think that's an important piece of this as well. Getting sort of a 360 evaluation of the program from the inside and from the outside will only serve to have a better and clearer understanding of where our strengths and weaknesses are and how we can address them. I'm just looking, and I meant to look at this before, but I just want to, maybe Ron, you can speak to our policy, our procurement policy a little bit. I just want to make sure that we're not entering into a contract that we maybe should have to bid for or do, or seek out other consultants.
Well, these are considered professional services, which are allowed to be procured without going through an RFP process.
Anyone else? Mr. Delia? Or Mr. Villa?
The timing, Dr. Rodriguez.
That's still something we would talk about, depending on if it does get approved, how quickly they can begin the process. But once it's approved, I think I would want a quick turnaround.
Right, and then how long would it take from beginning to end to complete this?
That just depends on scheduling of the meetings. As you see, there's 2 forms for parents and others, so we really would have to sit down and sort of map out. I'd have a better understanding once we do enter into a full agreement, and then map out how long it would take, scheduling wise.
Is this the final proposal that we're submitting?
This is their
Or
final.
Is this a rough?
No, this is a revised. We had them change a few things. We wanted a reporting directly to the board. We wanted this to be, again, as impartial as possible, and this is their revised.
Maybe I missed it. I read it. I actually read it a bunch of times. Parents.
They would have 2 opportunities.
There were issues or concerns raised about compliance. I guess I don't know if that's the right word, but and that's not. I don't see that in here. Is that?
Well, this is meant to, in terms of the issues, those issues would emerge from those forms. So they don't want to have an exhaustive list of what the concerns are, but that those would arise from those forms. So there could be something that hasn't come up that may come up as part of that natural discussion and dialogue, and open-ended.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because it doesn't.
No, that could be, no, and it shouldn't. I mean, I think they should go in, and that's what they want to do, go in sort of with an open mind. Because there might be parents who didn't speak out yet who might have other issues to bring forward, and that's okay. Again, it's that natural, it should evolve naturally from grassroots.
I have a question about finances. It talks about upon completion, and it talks about reporting to the superintendent and the board. And then it also talks about the fact that if the consultants determine that and recommend additional activities are required, and it gives a slew of additional activities that they might recommend be required, is there a ceiling at which this could not go over because there's interviews, additional interviews?
So the total cost is not to
That's for the initial, the total cost.
Right.
But that
Right.
doesn't mean that
No.
after they're done with that initial part, that they won't recommend that they do additional work at an additional cost.
Right.
So that's where my concern comes in
Mhm.
is. what
We did
happens
have
if
that
they come back?
discussion, you're right, and it's a good question, thank you. We did have that discussion, my last discussion with the two consultants. And what they felt was that's something that they could offer, and they do normally offer every district that they work with. But at that point, we'd like to, because I think it should be turned over to us to make those action steps occur. So we're really in the driver's seat as to how we want to take that information and use it, as we should be. We want them to uncover and to go through that process, and then those action steps, that has to happen through us.
So you said that they offer them. Am I understanding you to say that there wouldn't be a charge for them, or?
No, just that we get to determine if we wanted to, utilize their services for those extra components.
Well, it would be hard to say, okay, you started the process and you have all this information, but now you're telling us you need more information, but we're not going to go with you again. I mean, that would be a really difficult
Well, one of the discussions,
decision to make.
but within that discussion, all the information we're going to get for that ceiling, I guess you could call it, we will have information. They could just determine, you know what, we could get further information that will help you, but that's our decision. We would have enough moving forward from the end of that to move forward and to have action, to put really good action steps together that are clear and measurable, and that's part of it. We can clarify that if that's bothersome, because we did talk about it, but, again, I think once we get to the end, they were very clear that we'd have enough information to put together very clear action steps that are measurable.
I guess the way it's worded, it sounds like they would put together recommendations, but if, however, it makes it sound like if they couldn't put together those recommendations and they saw that additional work needed to be done,
Right.
it sounds like that you either get one or the other.
Right.
So I guess that's my concern.
Well, that was clarified, but we can clarify it in the language for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
You had mentioned, so they're going to be reporting back to the Board of Ed directly.
Yes.
Who's going to be, helping them get set up, or initially, is there a person working with them, or, I don't want to say supervising them?
Come up with the forums or? that they're
Exactly,
gonna be
finding
working?
out how they get in touch with all the different stakeholders, how do they get, set up all the meetings, how can they use our space or whatever space they need. I would assume there's going to be somebody that there's going to be a direct contact with.
They will be working directly with me that way, at least to set up for the initial forums, and gaining access to the administrators and the staff, and where to hold it at the high school. I think we agree that would be a good space. So I would be the contact person directly.
Did we look at it?
But I would not be at any of the forums. They don't want any district personnel where the parents are, or even where the staff is. And I understand that.
Did you get other proposals, or do we have others?
We did not, because these are, when you look at, all of the districts out there that have used consultants, these two are really phenomenal and come with very high reputations. They've done this before in other venues. And again, that impartiality, plus they've been involved in so many mediations with parents around special education. I think they're really strong.
So you answered one of my questions. It didn't mention if they've done it before, so that was one of my
Absolutely.
other questions. Is there any way to get more details with their background and stuff? It's just
Absolutely.
Like a brief, maybe their resumes or just
Sure.
something. And, sort of speaking to the point of where they've done it other places. And
Sure.
I don't know if there's a way to even say the outcome or just, some sort of background history, what they've done in other areas or towns within Connecticut.
I had something along Deb's lines. Is that okay? I just wanted to say that I agree with Deb, that I'm worried that it's going to open up a can of worms, that if they might make recommendations, and then we would be stopping halfway, and I want to make sure that we're seeing this through to the end. And that language, to me, concerns me as well, that if however statement, that whole second part of that paragraph, if they decide or recommend that we need another 100 hours of work, and we say no.
Right. So, again, I've had that discussion with them specifically, but I know they would be amenable to clarifying that, absolutely. And I see your point. Well taken.
Yeah, I guess I sort of have concerns along the same line, though a little bit different. I like the idea of, the stakeholder meetings, and then they say they're going to prepare this written report. But I guess I just have some concerns because some of the issues raised were around, confidentiality and that sort of thing. And while those issues might come up in the meetings, I was, I guess, sort of hoping for this to go like maybe one step farther, where they do talk about here in the examples, review of special education service delivery systems and office practices. I sort of was hoping maybe that would be part of it, just to kind of clear up any issues or talk about maybe if there's a best practice that we're not following or something like that around that, because it seemed to be that was a common theme that was brought up, and I'm sure it will. Well, I'm not sure because I'm not going to be in the stakeholder meetings, but I'm assuming that it will come up in some of those, and I just want to make sure that we're getting kind of this impartial third party to give us some idea as to whether or not we are currently following best practices or if there's room for improvement in that specific area and maybe other areas as well.
So we could go back to them and clarify that as well, because I think that's another good point.
That's what I was, about compliance and all that stuff, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Right. Okay.
If no one else is going to ask this question. Ron, so to steal a question from our last discussion, where are the possibilities for finding the funding within our budget to make sure we get this and any other costs we may find if, for instance, the things that Rebecca mentioned, if this number needs to go up, to make sure we include that stuff when we get all.
Currently, this would be charged to a line called professional services, which is under the special education budget, and that professional services includes the cost of the attorneys, legal fees that we use, and also any outside professional advisors that we need. So it would be covered under this. Last year, we were in pretty good shape with the professional services, so this year's budget is built on the same basis as last year. So if we have the same level of experience, we should be fine.
I appreciate that question because, so our last presentation included costs, this includes costs. I know that at the beginning of the meeting, we were talking about added teachers that we didn't have in the budget originally and added specialists that we weren't, so I think that theme is sort of coming up.
It won't be so agreeable when December rolls around.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions? Yes, Mr. Blue.
I would just like to see the proposal dated, and I would like to see an estimated date of completion so that we can have an actual timeline or some sort of a timeline so we know when it's going to start and when it's going to finish, give or take. That's a question.
I guess after the last meeting, we received a lot of public comment without having any chance as board members to say or do anything about it. So I wanted to give board members an idea of what I think the board's role is in all of this. And I think in in any matter of disagreement, we of course encourage people to come to the administration, the teachers, whoever is first in line with the students. And that's actually part of what our policy says. It says whenever a complaint is made directly to the board as a whole or to a board member as an individual, it shall be referred to the superintendent for study and possible resolution through normal channels. So I think that's exactly what's happening here. And so it's good to know that our board is functioning correctly and everything is going as our policies indicate. I only found that today, so but it's good that we're going in that direction. But I think in terms of student matters, that becomes incredibly important because for the board to be objective and an objective arbiter, which we're supposed to be, when disputes come up, we have to consider all information, yet we don't really have access to student records. So we're getting information about students at public participation, and we have an incomplete view because we're not able, the administration can't share student information with us. It's, according to FERPA, we can't have that information. So I think that we're much better designed to deal with broad macro issues, and I think that having a study and the superintendent be able to conduct a study is a good idea, and I'm glad to see that I think there's support for this. I don't hear anybody saying that they don't think this should happen. So I think that this is working the way it should work, and I think next meeting will bring forward this as a formal proposal to vote on.
Yes,
With all of those clarifications. Absolutely.
So I appreciate everybody's objective input and all right, so sensing no more discussion, we'll move on to discussion and possible action on the 2019-2020 school budget calendar. And I think you have the calendar in your packet, and there's a few differences from previous years. You want to speak to the calendar, Ron? Mr. Binkowski?
Sure, I can do that. Well, it's hard to believe we're going to be beginning the budget process this Friday, based on the calendar that we had to earlier than we were last year. There are four major components of the budget calendar: the administration, assembles the budget board of education, deliberates and approves the budget. The board of finance review, who set the budget, and the legislative council, who set the budget. Those are segmented throughout this schedule. The only area where the changes are listed are from numbers 8, 9, 10, and 11. What we've done is taken a hard look at what our experiences have been over the past few years and the dates that we have traditionally or most recently prepared the budget. We found that it would be much better to actually push up the delivery and the presentation of the budget. If you remember, 3 years ago, we didn't present the budget until the last board meeting, or the last Tuesday in January. That was traditionally the time that we did it. Some of the advantages of that are that we have full November and December expenses that we can include in the budget document, which gives us at least 6 full months rather than 5, and in some cases 4. So I think that gives us more solid numbers in a number of cases. It's not as rushed to assemble the budget a week before Christmas break. There's a lot of other activities that are going on in the schools that are demanding central office time, so I think that's an advantage as well. It will be the same number of meetings for the whole budget process through number 14. dates just changed where last year, for example, we had 2 budget workshops in the first week of January. Those 2 budget workshops will be moved to the third week of January. So we're going from the second week to the third week. So we're really pushing things up a couple weeks. The public hearing and the discussion is on the same date that it would have been under the prior formula, and the adoption is under the same date. So there are basically 4 meetings that are different than what we've done in the last 3 years. There is one is the delivery, which is set on the day before Christmas. It will come on January 11th. The superintendent will make a presentation on January 15th instead of January 3rd, which is what we're doing. And then we have budget workshops on January 17th and 22nd, with the public hearing on the 29th. So we get the 29th for the next schedule like we were in the previous year. This is the calendar that I think we discussed in the central office, which seems to make the most sense for us. Another component of why this would be helpful is that we are migrating to a new financial accounting system in the business office. And we'll be changing over from one system to another system. The other date for payroll is going to be for January, so that we have wages that will be presented on a calendar year basis for W-2 purposes. So the first payroll for 2019 is actually January 4th, which means those last December, we will be doing a lot of work to close out the 2018 year. The last payroll in December is December 21st, so the weeks after that, we'll be doing all the final annual reports, sending out W-2s, 1099s, to various vendors, and coming over to the new system first. So that's going to be competing with the schedule that has been passed and the schedule for
Does anybody have questions or comments? Mr. Glenn?
So Ron, our time period reviewing, the board reviewing the budget is significantly shorter, am I correct?
Well, it eliminates the week after Christmas and the first week of January. Well, that's just to review it. It doesn't get presented until the first week of January. It depends on what you do over your Christmas.
Mr. Gleason?
Along the same lines, although I was going to be a little more direct about it, going from having a week and a half, 2 weeks to 4 days, it makes me a bit uneasy to look over the binder before that first meeting. So while I appreciate the fact that we push back the meetings, if we could get a little more time between getting the binder and that first meeting, the budget workshop, I would appreciate that.
One of the internal discussions we had was that the 11th would be the outside delivery date. If we could push things up, we could probably do it, but we could do it.
Yes, Ms. Lyman, I'm going to propose to take a positive look at this. Usually when we get the budget prior to the winter break, when the budget is presented and when we have our budget workshops, we often get changed pages. Will this alleviate the number of changed pages that we'll receive and have to relook at and relearn as we are deliberating over the budget?
Absolutely.
Thank you, much appreciated. Anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Clark.
I hope I'm not allowed to ask this question. I know it's not necessarily related to the calendar, but the first thing there, the goals of the budget process for the superintendent meeting with the A team, is that at all shared with the board first, or like how are those goals, or if it's not, like how are those determined, and how are those set for the future year?
Which number is that?
Line 2.
So we are, as a board, supposed to be setting goals as well. And so that should happen at our next meeting. So we should have some proposed goals to discuss at our next meeting. And we are supposed to have that done by the beginning of October. So that should help in those discussions, I think.
You're talking about the goals, though, in a discussion with the A team, correct? Specifically, what we talk about, we certainly wait until we hear the goals of the board. But this particularly involves Ron talking about the expectations and the timeline and all of those kinds of goals. And then we look at it through our own leadership goals and look at together as a team what is important, what are some of the needs already that we can see early on. Remember, this is September. So we start to look at what goals do we have in alignment with the district goals and our leadership goals. And we've already talked about that in our retreat. So that's how we tie it together. And then I meet with each of those principals, those building leaders, individually as we get closer to the process itself.
Also, we do have a budget preparation manual, which we go over with all of the cost center administrators that defines the different aspects of the budget, how things are supposed to be developed, what the allocation is, what its class size guidelines are, what the expected projection numbers are, what we think the actual enrollments per class at the elementary levels will be, determination of the number of teachers and all those sorts of things. And it's also an opportunity for the administrators to give us direct feedback on what they see happening at their schools and what they think we need to take into account to make this a better plan. So it's a dialogue that hopefully is.
I think you were referring to the needs, though. I mean, that's where we start to look at what needs are emerging as part of this particular process for that particular year.
Which is number 4. Is that what you're looking at?
We were talking about, I think, number 2, the goals of, is that what you were referring to?
So I want to make sure that we're answering your question, because I feel like, have we answered it? Because several of us have responded.
Yeah, no, I know. I don't know how to try to be more clear. I mean, so like the packet that Ron is referring to that's right in front of him right there, like we don't see that packet. So like I'm just making sure that I guess we discuss in the next couple meetings. I'm just trying to make sure that the Board of Ed goals and your A team and everybody are sort of aligned, and we're not like going off on 2 different tangents.
I was just going to share that this is different than the goals and expectations. These are the expectations. This is the actual manual so that those who are entering all of the detail in a budget understand that process. That's different from the goals that they're looking at in terms of needs. What kinds of things do they need for that particular budget year? So they're 2 different things, but they're happening basically simultaneously.
So it's not 4.
Well, that's a submission, yes. That leads up to the submission, so they understand how to submit it. And all the expectations around how to submit their budgets. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense to me. I don't think it's going on is what do they need? What do they need and what are they putting in their budget?
That's different than just how to do it.
That's different than how
Yes,
to do it.
that's the technical pieces to it.
And then you all look at that and then they revise it depending
On our conversations. It's really dependent because we do have, this is very early on in the process,
as the process unfolds, we have individual meetings where we look at their completed budget that they're submitting, and revisions get made before it even gets to the board level.
Right, all this work here through number 6 leads up to number 7, which are the meetings with the superintendent. And that's where the final decisions are made. That's where if there's a new program that's going to be implemented or recommended, it gets discussed and it gets included or it gets included. So it's almost like building the foundation. Once the foundation is built, then you start correcting the structure.
I completely understand it. I think where I'm coming from is, wouldn't it be interesting to see what they're asking for before anything is eliminated?
I think it's included though, that will be included. I mean, the board never gets, that kind of goes back to the previous conversation. The board doesn't get involved in the details of how things are done. We may set the overall goals of what we would like to see the district doing, but then it's up to administration to do all that stuff. And the board doesn't get involved in all the details of that. Does that
But just as a point of reference, there is a section of the budget that does share or convey what those areas were that maybe a principal asked for and it didn't get included. Okay?
Okay, any other questions, additions to the discussion? So we have discussion and possible action on the budget calendar. Is this something that you're ready to do this evening? Or we? Yes.
I would like a little more time. And I agree with you, a little more than 4 days. That's possible.
Well, we have a board meeting, a regular Board of Education meeting on January 8th. I said I could move it to the 9th. If we can save the delivery costs, perhaps we can give it to you at that meeting.
I would be okay with having it for a week, so the 8th or the 9th if it had to be.
First, let's get the motion on the table. So I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the 2019-2020 school budget calendar. Mr. Guzman makes the motion, Ms. Harris takes seconds. Would anybody like to amend the motion? Yes, Mr. DeLeo.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the calendar to distribute the superintendent's proposed budget from January 11th to January 8th.
Does anybody want a second? So Mr. DeLeo makes the motion to change the distribution date from January 11th to January 8th. Ms. Harris takes seconded. Is there any further discussion on that? We'll be working on it through the meeting. All those in favor of the amendment? Aye. Any opposed? All right, and then all those in favor of the budget calendar as amended? Aye. Any opposed? So that passed unanimously. All right. So that brings us to our public participation. Second one of the night. We have competing. So if you could just give us your name and address when you come up to the table. And
Michelle Franger, 1 Crossbrook Road, Newtown, Connecticut. Before I start, let me just give you a little background. I have 3 children. My eldest, she's at Marist College. She's a freshman. She went to Newtown High School, had a phenomenal high school experience. My second child is a sophomore, and she's having a great time, probably too much. My baby, he's a 7th grader, and he's had a challenging time since birth. He was a part of the Birth at 3 program, preschool, kindergarten. Because his issues were so intense, the superintendent made the decision to give him double kindergarten because when it was a half day at the time. I have enjoyed and loved the public school. It's been great for my 2 girls who are regular ed students. But my son, who is a special ed student, it's been difficult, it's been challenging. I'm here because I have sat by, I've supported him, I've called out for help with the school district, and nothing seems, I don't feel as though I'm being heard. So this is what I have for the board and the superintendent. And I just, so you know, I've had several conversations with administrators, both the special ed as well as the building administrator and Dr. Rodriguez. Far too many special education student needs in this district are not being met appropriately. And worse yet, they're made to feel less than their peers. The education gaps continue to widen year after year. Unfortunately, for many of the SPED students, the gap never closes and before they graduate from high school. Not because they couldn't do it, not because they're incapable of achieving, but because this school district administrators fail them, because they're the one who ultimately makes the decision. The truth is, the district failed them because their needs dare to surpass the allotted SPED budget. Those SPED students, including my own son, are entitled to an individualized, appropriate educational program and services that this district deems too costly, and so they experience the effect of last year's budget and the previous year's budget for special education. I'm here today, we're here today, because we are the voice of our children. We will not allow them to be marginalized. All of our SPED children have a future awaiting them, and similarly to each of their typical regular ed peers. We need this administration to see our children as our future, as the man and woman they will become, and invest in the programs and the resources they so desperately need, and not see them as a temporary line item or a budget number. Regardless of which school they attend, like me, many SPED parents are being tested as we face many adversities when dealing with the special education department in Newtown. The planning placement team, PPT, meeting is the opposite of what its intended purpose is, as many of us know all too well. Planning does not take place with the parents, as we find that programs are predetermined. It tends to be a waste of time. Why? Because we do not have a voice. Because we are
I see you have several pages there, and we ask that you keep it to 3 minutes. If you have lengthy comments, I would ask that
I'll have to keep it to bullet point.
Can you submit them to us through email?
I will, but I'll just finish up part of it that I think is important.
If I let you have more than 3 minutes, though, everybody needs to have. So I'm just going to ask you to finish up.
Okay, I will finish up. So at the PPT, this is what happens. You're supposed to be, by the law, you're supposed to be a part of the team. The only way you're part of the team is if you nod your head and say yes. The minute you advocate for your child, then you're no longer a part of the team. Guess what? The decision is based on how we're outnumbered as parents because we're told the team has made the decision.
At best, if we're lucky, we're told, we'll put your concerns down in the IEP, we'll put your, we'll document your concern. I'm telling you, the things that goes on, and I have numerous emails with administration, and I'm telling you, if we as parents decide to go public, like really public, it will be big. So I'm just saying, I have no problem emailing this to you guys, because we elected each of you, because you are our voice. You're our voice. You're supposed to be here to help us, to be an oversight, to make sure that administrators are doing right by not just regular ed parents, regular ed children, but for those special ed students, because they have a future too. And I will email this to you, and I will also email and send you an email where I sent to the special ed director and supervisor and Dr. Rodrigue, which is quite telling. If I put it on my Facebook page or online, it would go viral. That's how bad it is.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate your cutting it short.
Hi. Hi. Jennifer Strykowski, 57 West Lane. I want to start off by saying to our superintendent, thank you for this self-study. Great, you needed. I want to say something positive. My daughter attends the PAL program at Millgate, where I'm extremely happy with her programming. The staff is incredible. Mostly Miss Lola Aldrich, who is in the audience right now. She's an amazing teacher. She is collaborative, inventive, and awesome.
Again, I'm just going to ask
Oh,
people
no, okay,
not
sorry.
to use people's names.
Sorry,
when
sorry.
they're talking.
So sorry.
Yeah, we can't.
Okay, sorry. But having said that, after the last meeting, as you can imagine, the court of public opinion has been horrible to the parents in the back of me. So I'm going to say this not mostly for you, because I know you understand, mainly for the parents in this town who are maybe having private conversations that are not in private areas, or other staff in town that are talking privately, and there may be other people listening. These parents are not attacking the district. They're trying to get what is right by the law for their children. And I implore anybody that is in their shoes to do anything different than what they are doing. So I'm here to support my friends and my fellow Newton friends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Liza Mecca, 10 Wells Road. Just try to pull it together, better than I did last time. Not like so in the 3 weeks since the last meeting, I've really tried to reflect on what my goal is and what I'm trying to do. I work as a hospital administrator. I oversee 4 in and outpatient departments. And I kept just trying to bring it back to what I would do as an administrator if someone brought egregious concerns to my attention. In the hospital, the patient, that's why we're there, that's why I have a job. I would assume the same is for everyone in this room. Well, in front of me. I just can't wrap my head around the fact that in 3 weeks, I really appreciate the self-study. There's 0 action. There has been breaches in confidentiality for years. Years. I do not trust that my son's information has not been put in the hands of someone that doesn't really, that shouldn't have it. If that happened at my job and it was one of my staff members, they would not have a job. It's a hard stop. You know, we have a responsibility of these children, especially vulnerable ones, to keep their records private and not be lazy. So I would like to know, and obviously this isn't a Q&A, in the last 3 weeks, has there even been a conversation? Who's making these photocopies? Who's putting the stamp on them? Who's double checking the names? Who's making sure my son's information isn't going into any of these families behind me? I know I also have another personal agenda as far as my son's specific disability, but a self-study is a long-term, excellent game plan. I really, truly believe that. But we have no time,
We don't know when it's starting, and in the meantime, there's many, many families that are gonna be sitting in PPTs wondering what's happening to their children. There is yet to be an answer, or anything. So we just are still dwindling, barely hanging on, most of us paying attorney fees. And I just had to make sure that I put it out there, that it just does not help with the distrust that many of us have. So as much as I can appreciate the self-study, and I look forward to going to those forums and seeing what comes out of it, because I hope to be a long-term Newtown resident, I'm still really unsure of what's going on right now. Some people have reached out about thinking that we're attacking the district. Please do not misconstrue my advocacy for attacking. This is not personal. It has nothing to do with anything but my 8-year-old son, and potentially my other 2 children, you never know. So thank you.
Listen Windows of Free Bob Kathleen. Again, thank you so much for putting this on the agenda, coming back with a plan of action. 3 weeks ago, we started a petition because we want to learn like you want to learn. Who else is experiencing this? We want to be their voice. A lot of people are scared of retaliation. I've shared information about my son that the whole town now knows. It makes me so sad that the whole town read about my son. And again, I'm not asking anyone, I'm just doing what I need to do to help him read and help him thrive because he's not receiving effective services. But tonight I'm not here to talk about Jaden. I'm here to talk about this petition and to highlight some of the systemic issues that are happening for the voices that are not here because they're scared and they don't know how to advocate for their child. There are 350 signatures on this petition. You can read it on your own, mainly Connecticut, and I'm going to read some comments from Newtown. I'm just going to read them out loud. Number 1, I left Newtown schools because they cause more problems than solutions. 2, because they're not following the rules of my son's IEP and they are lacking in resources for our children. 3rd comment, Newtown schools did not do right by my son either. Their special education system is the worst. I pulled both of my kids out. Number 4, my family was subjected to FERPA violations on behalf of the district 3 times, other parents receiving my child's confidential records, and each time I was not notified. Next, because I lived in Newtown for 45 years, I had 5 children through the system. I was also a PTA president, and I saw some of the shortcomings. We heard from 2 teachers. I'm a teacher and a parent in the community. I have found that it has not been for my personal education background, my son would be lost and confusing. I'm an educator in Newtown, and I'm seeing more and more children fall through the cracks because we have special ed administration that don't have the children's mind in their interest. I'm shocked by the lack of empathy, caring, and compassion, and the professionalism displayed by the Newtown special ed regarding the students with special needs. My boys are in Newtown, both received special ed services, and we have also received other students' information. I thought it was an isolated incident, but I guess not. I have a child in special ed in Newtown. I've read about people getting the wrong IEP. Last summer I received the wrong ESY report. I didn't realize I was the only one. My son is a student. We had to fight for everything, including that the teachers would follow the IEP. We're always fighting for things that seem to be no-brainers with the schools. It's exhausting for parents. My child was one with dyslexia who was not adequately served in this district. Her needs were not fully met, and now we have moved to a new district. Newtown, more than any other district, should be doing everything possible to promote and foster inclusion and support special needs students. What goes on in this district is truly appalling. Want more? Because I do not feel my son has received the support he needs at Newtown Middle School for his reading disability. I'll let you all read the rest. Thank you for your time. Again, this is a systemic issue, and I appreciate you putting a very thorough plan of action together. And I'm also quite disappointed in the last 3 weeks that there hasn't been more done. Thank you.
Susan Muir, 11th Street, Meadowbrook. Mom, school just not like that was my senior in high school has said to me in the past couple of weeks regarding his progression in education here in town schools. That doesn't mean that there haven't been more than
but I would say that overall, it feels just like these ladies have said, we've had to fight for everything. And yet, nothing I've asked for would cause the district to panic, because I paid for it. So my son has dyslexia and ADHD in particular. And when he couldn't be in third grade, the school wouldn't test him. So I tested him. When the school wouldn't teach him appropriately through ordinary method, I paid for that. I paid for tutors every year in schooling, maybe except for last year, so that he could just basically keep his head above the water. And yet, the minor things I asked for are not met. I asked if there could a teacher for my ADHD inattentive child post homework. I get told things like, no, that interferes with their educational style. How does posting homework interfere with teachers' educational style? So that I can just follow up and help make sure that that homework is completed. So teachers don't post homework. I have proactively tried to email teachers who didn't respond. And by the way, one of those teachers is the same teacher who at the end of my son's year put a comment on his report card that he didn't do his normal complete all of his homework. So you wonder why he hates Newtown schools? He loves Newtown. He hates school. He hates school. He thinks school is just built to make it more difficult for him. He thinks school just doesn't work for him. Every year there's a new bridge for us to cross. The language requirement now. My dyslexic son, who couldn't be taught in Newtown schools how to read and write in English, his native language, now has to still take Spanish in order to graduate. And yet it's going to be taught the same way they tried to teach him to read and write in English, which he could not learn from the school. So we are on pins and needles hoping that we will get it through, and so that he can graduate. And if not, I will be, of course, back at the school and threatening whatever I have to threaten in order to get him released from that in order to graduate, because he's not being taught in a method that's appropriate for his dyslexia. And so it continues our battle, but it has been a battle every year. And as soon as I heard about these ladies, I said, my battle is almost over, but I have to come back and I have to fight for them. I have to fight to make sure that there isn't another kid sitting here his senior year going, Mom, school's just not being appropriate. Thank you.
So I don't really need to pile on about all the services that my son deserves rather than is not getting. But I did want to address, earlier it was mentioned that we're praising the team-oriented aspect of the schedule. And I did want to address how far from the truth that really is. You hear parents using the word fight. Nobody here wants to fight for anybody. Nobody here wants to be arguing or writing PPPs, begging for services for their kids. No one wants to see a child struggle. It's really hard, and I go on and on back to my son personally. He's really struggling this year, and he's been not quick. But I don't need to pile on. What I do want to say is that this year, last I mentioned, a lot of parents are dealing with attorney fees. Even when you go to that, a lot of procedural breaches being made by the district and then being used against parents later on as like an arm up or leg up rather on the parents to get what they should be already receiving. So, I really hope that the self-study helps and clarifies, but again, to Liza's point, we're running out of time. My son is starting third grade, and he's miserable. He is, he doesn't want to get on the bus every day. I've seen him go from, half a kid in the summer to struggling nonstop this year. He feels the stress of not being provided the services he needs. Because again, if we as parents don't want to fight, our kids don't want to struggle. My son doesn't want to go to school and not get in and struggle and have a hard time. So
I just would ask you to keep that in mind.
Julie Conlon, 11 Wilkinson Drive, Newtown. I just want to start off by saying I appreciate it's on the agenda, self-study, gives me some hope. Also want to point out though, that parents understand the idea that ideally these issues be resolved at the school level or at the PPT level, if that were possible, they would be reaching out to you. I can only speak from my own experience with PPTs in Newtown, but this one is pretty extensive. It's at the elementary level and spans a few administrations. We're fortunate here in Newtown to have so many talented, wonderful, skilled, caring teachers and service providers. I think these problems that you're hearing about are ultimately the result of the special ed administration's hostility towards families. You can have the greatest services in the world, but if families can't access them, what good is it? The difference between parent-teacher meeting or PPT with a school administrator, or even that much better experience than read versus PPT, special administrator at the K-4 level is astounding. The latter is cooperative, it's just at the meetings.
Yeah, but I don't reference people that,
Well, it's the administration, I don't tell you. The letter is cooperative, people work together, they share concerns. Or, I should say, the latter is really hostile. You're faced with condescension, and it's a terrible attitude. It's really heartbreaking when you consider that families are there because they're trying to get home to their kids. I know, Michelle, you said how hard it is for you that you can't share due to confidentiality concerns what all of the little pieces with what the administration is doing to help kids. But think about these parents who have to pick up here, work their hearts out about their children's personal experiences. Do you think they want to do that? They don't want to do that. I just hope that, excited to hear about the self-study, but I think families really want more than even they want. I hope that's not what it is.
anyone else? Sensing no other takers on public participation? Right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. The motion is for State seconds it. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. I just want to remind board members of our meeting.
Thank you to everybody.